I'm Joe from Zero Tolerance Gluten Free Homebrew Club. I was an established homebrewer of 8 years when I started, when I got my diagnosis.
Which was how long ago?
About a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So I had been brewing barley beer for 8 or so years, and I got my diagnosis, and I went through all the stages of grief. Just, before I landed on acceptance, I was ready to quit brewing. But I got to acceptance and realized, maybe I can make something of gluten-free beer. And I had tried some gluten-free beers, and I remember I tasted Groundbreaker's IPA and said, wait a minute, there's beers that can pass. This is going to be okay, because I had some that didn't. But I had that beer, and I said, well, I'll make a run at it. And I started brewing some gluten-free beers, and the results were pretty good. And I realized what I was missing was I belonged to a homebrew club. I belonged to PDX Beer Geeks. I still go to their meetings sometimes. But I would go to their meetings, and I couldn't drink their beer. And when they would drink my beer, they didn't have much constructive feedback for me. They would drink my beers and say, you're getting closer. But nobody could tell me what I could do to improve my beers. And I realized at that point what we really needed was a dedicated gluten-free homebrew club where we could have a meeting and everybody in that room, the beer that you drank is safe. And you could share alike, and we could give each other feedback. And I needed people to learn from, and I'm sure that there were brewers that I needed to teach things to just from a brewing perspective. And because I had experience, just not in gluten-free. So I decided to contact Groundbreaker because I'm local and they're the biggest and first. And I asked, would you guys be interested in hosting us? If I started a gluten-free homebrew club, would you be interested in hosting us? And I talked to Jesse Buffton, and he's just like, we've been waiting for this to happen. Like, we've been wanting to do something like that. In fact, we're having a dedicated gluten-free homebrew competition in a couple of months. Do you think that we can tie these things in together? And I said, that sounds like a great idea. I'll start the club, and I will send people toward your competition. And if you could send people who submit beers toward our club, that would be, synergy. We'll work that out. And we had our first meeting, about a dozen or so people showed up, which I was surprised by. It was like, this is awesome. We had a guy happened to be in town from Ohio. Hi, Neil. And Neil's written for you.
Yeah, Neil's written on my blog.
Yeah, awesome. Neil's great. So
agree.
Neil happened to be in town that day. So Neil came to our meeting, and then we had, people from PDX brewers showed up for me, which I really appreciate. They're very supportive. And then just a couple, just random interested parties showed up. We had our first meeting, and then the second meeting, we had a group brew.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite style to drink and your favorite style to brew?
My favorite style to drink, I like IPAs. That's pretty easy.
You are in Oregon.
I am in Oregon. I like hoppy beers. I love making red ales. I never thought that I was going to be a guy who likes red ales, but my dad happens to like red ales, and he bought me my first homebrew kit. And he sent it to me, and he's like, when I come visit, make me a real good red ale. And I was just like, I don't like red ales, Dad, but I'll do it for you. And I started brewing them, trying to get it right, and I was like, wait a minute. I do like red ales. They're actually really good. There's that balance between the caramel sweetness and that hoppiness, and that's actually the beer that I entered into Groundbreaker's competition won the thing, and it was my dad's red ale, which is coming out in a month or so here through Groundbreaker.
They're going to brew your recipe?
It. Yeah, we're brewing it here at the club, or I'm sorry, at the brewery, and that will be released commercially because that's the prize for winning the competition. But recreating that in a gluten-free grain bill was a challenge. I used a ridiculous amount of character malts, just trying to get it to that red color and to have that roastiness and that deep caramel flavor is a hard thing to recreate. But I managed to do it, I think, fairly well. And that beer did really well at NHC too, but I got myself disqualified because I did not properly name the gluten-free ingredients that were in the beer. And I used to really love doing Pilsners, and that's not something that I've been able to recreate with millet and rice yet, and that's something I'm looking forward to. That's a goal I've set for the coming year, is to brew a pretty good classic, American or German Pilsner using not Pilsner malt.
I saw we had 2 Pilsners, I believe, too, on the table today. One from from Beerly Brewing, the
Yep.
Felix Pilsner, and the other one was Alt Brew's Paddleboard Pilsner. What did you think of those?
They're both good. I really like JP's beer, and that's a beer that's come a very long way. It was one of the first gluten-free beers that I tasted here at Groundbreaker. They have little events where they'll invite Dan from Moon Shrimp and JP, and they'll do like a tasting in the back here where we are tonight. And I tasted that beer the first time, and I'll be honest, it was not where it is today. I didn't like that beer very much, and I was like, I wonder if you could actually make a Pilsner off of sorghum. And then JP's put a lot of time and a lot of effort into improving that beer, and it's fantastic now. I think it's probably, and it's a sorghum beer, I think it's probably the best gluten-free Pilsner on the market right now, and it's a solid beer. And I drink that one often, and it's solid. It's really, really good. So I would say he's doing it the best of anyone right now, but I've yet to have an all-grain gluten-free Pilsner that I think really fits the bill. He's done a great job of working with sorghum and kind of bending it to his will, but I'm curious to see who's going to crack the code on doing an all-grain Pilsner.
So it certainly seems, as someone who thought that their home brewing career was over, or hobby was over,
Yeah.
when they received their diagnosis, it seems that you've come full circle from that place.
Yeah, the opposite is true. Not only is your career not over, but you're given the biggest challenge that a home brewer can get, and that's how to make delicious beer without using barley, wheat, or rye. And that's one of the biggest challenges. If you're a dedicated home brewer and you get a diagnosis, it's on now. Like now's not the time to go hide in the corner. It's the time to accept that challenge and go figure out how to do this, because they have iron brewer competitions where you're throwing secret ingredients and you need to make a delicious beer out of it. This is the true iron brewer challenge.
On a daily basis.
Make delicious beer, no barley, no wheat, no rye.